I'm AP Townley, and this is Roleplay Culture. Do you want to set things on fire with magic? Or maybe twist the minds of the foes at your whims? Well, then a sorcerer is for you. But if the sorcerer, as cool as they are, has one problem above all others, it's this. Sorcerers know less spells than any other primary caster in the game, even less than the bard. They top out at 20 spells, barring feats and subclasses. Sorcerers do not prepare spells like a cleric or a druid, but instead they know spells like a bard. They only know a few, and they can only retrain spells that they already know for different spells when they gain a level, so not very often. Which can make choosing anything other than the most optimum spell very difficult. So here's my take on 5 underrated spells for the sorcerer in D&D 5e. Like usual, we'll choose one spell per level, levels 1 to 5. Number 1, Grease. You know that scene when a cartoon villain is chasing the wily bird or mouse? It hits a patch of oil and starts running in place, or does a pratfall? It's basically this spell. This first level conjuration spell takes an action to cast, has a range of 60 feet, and lasts for a minute, with no concentration. A 10-foot square area is covered in a slick substance, making it difficult terrain, meaning it costs twice the movement to move through that area. If you're in the area when this spell is cast, start your turn there or enter the area, you make a dex save or fall prone. For a first level spell slot, that's a pretty good battlefield control spell. And there are a couple of interesting things about this spell that are worth note. This spell doesn't require concentration, so it could be combined with other battlefield control spells to control where the enemy goes, or just to make a nightmare of where they move around. The real thing is the wording of this spell. Many spells that affect an area, like say Spirit Guardians, have a caveat that says the first time they enter or start their area in the spell. Meaning you can't use an ability to pull them into the area, push them out, and repeat until they fail to save. Well, this spell doesn't have that caveat. So if you can move enemies around repeatedly, or if an ally can, you can really ensure they take a tumble. This isn't really broken, but by itself, it doesn't cause any damage. But being prone kind of sucks. They have disadvantage on attack rolls, attacks made within 5 feet have advantage, and standing up takes half their movement. And remember, they're standing in difficult terrain, so they're not going anywhere fast. Number 2, Gust of Wind. You remember earlier we were talking about pushing enemies around into our grease spell? Well, here's a good option for that. This second level evocation spell takes an action to cast, creates a 60-foot line centered on you, and lasts up to a minute, and it does require concentration. A sustained hurricane force wind emanates from you in a 10-foot wide, 60-foot long blast. Anyone trying to move closer to you must use 2 feet for every 1 foot moved. Now, that's a distinction that's important. Remember, this is not difficult terrain, which means it will stack with difficult terrain. Any cloud or vapor effects are dispersed, as are candles and fires. Anyone caught in the wind blast must make a strength save or be pushed 15 feet away following the path of the line. And finally, you can use your bonus action to change the direction of the wind line. This spell has some really good battlefield control effects and pairs nicely with the previous spell, letting you push enemies back into the grease, making them make that save or fall prone. And if they are knocked prone, they have to spend half their movement to stand up and have to spend a minimum of 10 feet just getting off the grease. And that's only if they're not moving towards you. That doesn't mean take into account the ally spells that you could be blowing your enemies into. But just whatever you do, please don't reflavor this spell as a fart for the sanity of your DM.
He farted.
Number 3, Blink. Let's be honest. We knew choosing any spell of this level was going to be tough, not to mention any kind of underrated spell. This This is a weird little exploration slash defensive spell. I guess that's how you would classify it. This third level transmutation spell takes an action to cast and lasts for a minute without the need of concentration. You roll a d20 at the end of each turn, and on an 11 or higher, you disappear into the ethereal plane. At the start of your next turn, you return to the place within 10 feet of where you disappeared. Which means, in the time from the end of your round to the beginning of your next, you can't be targeted by anything unless it reaches into the ethereal plane, which is super rare. You can take an action to end the effect and reappear as before. While you're in the ethereal plane, you can see what's going on as long as it's within 60 feet of you. And no one can see you or affect you. But if you run into a phase spider or a ghost, you're going to be in trouble. So you're running around the battlefield blasting spells to and fro while occasionally blinking out of existence. It doesn't require concentration, so you could be concentrating on a nasty effect and have some protection from losing that spell by hiding yourself in the ethereal plane. Or possibly sneaking through a castle. Blinking to avoid being seen as you make your way through a guarded area? Nice. Though the spell is pretty inconsistent. You just might not have the room for the invisibility in your limited spells known. But it can help in a pinch. It's also a pretty good spell to quicken with metamagic. Number 4, Storm Sphere. There are a bunch of elemental sphere type spells introduced from the Elemental Player's Guide Companion, or in the later Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And they're all pretty interesting, but the Storm Sphere is what caught my attention. This 4th level evocation spell takes an action to cast, has a range of 150 feet, lasts for a minute with concentration. It creates a 20-foot radius hurricane sphere. Any creature in the sphere, when it appears or ends their turn there, makes a strength save or take 2d6 bludgeoning damage. The ground there is also difficult terrain. On your turn, you can use your bonus action to make a ranged spell attack and throw little mini lightning bolts at your enemies. The range on them is 60 feet, measured from the center of the sphere, not from you. And if the target is inside the sphere, the attack has advantage. If you hit, they take 4d6 lightning damage. The noise also gives disadvantage to listening checks. This here's a weird battlefield control / damaging spell. It weaponizes your bonus action, creates a big hazard on the field that slows enemies, and is great for you and your allies to push and pull enemies into. It upcasts pretty well too. For every level above 4th, you add another 1d6 to both the bludgeoning damage and the lightning damage. It's pretty unusual. When 2 damage types are present in a spell, upcasting usually only buffs one of those damage types, not both. But for this spell, both damage types are increased. Though this spell doesn't do a lot of damage, it fulfills several roles on the battlefield, which is very efficient for a limited number of spells known. Slowing enemies down, damaging them again. Being this big hazard on the field, the enemies have to try and work around only for it to attack them anyway. Yeah, I like this spell. Number 5, Bigby's Hand. This here is an oldie but a goodie, creating a giant spectral hand to yeet your enemies or your allies into the depths of the abyss. Sadly, animate objects, 9 times out of 10, is used in place of Bigby's Hand. And for sheer damage potential, rightly so. But if the mighty Scandin Shorthalt has taught us anything, is that less is underrated. And underrated can be good. Now, this spell is by no means unknown. It's been around forever. It's underrated spells, not unknown spells for D&D. But Bigby's Hand has been overshadowed by other 5th level spells. Animate objects, Synaptic Static, Dominate Person. It's really hard taking an underrated spell at this level. But you only get 2 5th level spells, outside of subclasses and retraining. And picking a less powerful but more versatile spell might be the right choice. This 5th level evocation spell takes an action to cast, lasts for a minute, with concentration, and has a range of 120 feet. It creates a large-sized hand of force that mimics the movement of your own hand. The spell is a physical object, has an AC of 20, hit points equal to your maximum hit points, a strength of 26, and a dex of 10. If the hand's hit points is reduced to 0, spell ends. When you cast a spell, and with subsequent bonus actions, you can move the hand 60 feet and cause it to use a special effect. You can clench your fist and make a melee spell attack roll, dealing 48 force damage on a hit. Forceful Hand allows the hand to make a strength check versus an athletics check and push a creature 5 plus 5 times your ability modifier in feet in any direction you wish. If the target is medium size or smaller, it has disadvantage on that check, and the hand will pursue them as they are pushed. Grasping Hand allows the hand to grapple a huge or smaller creature, though medium size or smaller creatures have disadvantage on this check. While grappled, you can use your bonus action to crush the target, dealing 2d6 plus spellcasting ability modifier in bludgeoning damage. Interposing Hand gets between you and a creature you choose until you command it to do otherwise. It gives you half cover, which is +2 to AC, and 2 dex saves. It moves to stay between you and the target, and the target can't pass through the hand unless it has a higher strength score, which is 26, by the way. And even if it does have a higher strength score, it would be considered difficult terrain. This spell upcasts nicely too. Every level above 5th adds +2d8 to the clenched fist damage, and +2d6 to the grasping hand damage. It's a pretty good increase to both options, and not unlike the previous entry, Storm Sphere. It's a surprisingly versatile spell. It can be used for damage, for defense, battlefield control, as well as to hinder enemies with grappling. It could also, theoretically, be used for more mundane tasks like carrying or lifting people and objects. Technically speaking, the lists of effects the hand can do don't include this, but it does say in the description that the spell mimics your own hand. I see no reason why you couldn't climb on a flattened hand and have it lift you up into the air. But check with your DM first to make sure they don't have a different interpretation of this spell. Having said that, because it has a strength of 26 and is large-sized, the hand can lift up to 1,600 pounds. That could lift the entire party onto a ledge or get a boulder out of the way, though the spell can only carry half that weight for some length of time. So that is our list of 5 underrated spells for the Sorcerer in D&D 5e. If you want more videos like this, you're going to have to subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button, leave comments below, and I'll see you in the parlor.